Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the T.O.D Project Podcast. Today is episode 34, like Shaq with the Lakers. Today we have a phenomenal guest by the name of Cris Vargas, somebody I look up to as truly a mentor to me and thousands of other people around the world. I feel like this podcast is going to be so much value for every person that listens and watches this. So look, sit back, relax. If you got to grab some popcorn, whatever you got to do to tune in, to be comfortable while you listen to this great message that's about to be presented to you, let's get it. So Jared, how you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing today. I actually had a really good day. Work was a little suspect, not gonna lie, but you got to get through it somehow, right? So it's a temporary thing, so I'm dealing with it. But it was a good day. It's a good day. I came home, biked a little bit. It was kind of like my recovery day today. So I biked a little bit. It's hot as shit over here in Wisconsin. So that was a little exhausting. But it's good. I'm happy to be back. That's for sure. Really happy to be back.
Man, you looking good in the Triumph wear. But for our special guest, Cris Vargas, how are you feeling, my brother?
Yo, my brothers. I'm feeling blessed, grateful. Thank you for inviting me into today's podcast and allowing me to spend a little bit of time, today, just kind of going over some things that I think people really kind of need to hear. And, it's nice out here in Texas. We got the whole crew, about 22 heads deep at the trade house. And so everybody's just been on the grind all day, just reading calls. We just got back from the gym. So, feeling great. So we're ready.
Awesome. Well, man, I guess just go into it. Intro, kind of you, what kind of person, I guess, who you are, obviously, first, if people don't know, what you're all about, what you do, let the people know who is Cris Vargas.
So, it's a long story, but, I'll keep it simple. I come from humble beginnings, like most people who are first generation immigrants. I was born in Mexico, came here to the United States at the age of 3. My father brought me, my mom, my older brother. We packed into a 2-seater car like sardines and take, just the clothes on our backs to start something new, something fresh. And, it was definitely a challenge, but I'm so grateful for that experience because it really makes you grateful for the things that you have. Growing up in Mexico when I was a baby, I remember, having to take baths in tin cans and even use the restroom in 10 buckets. And, so very, very humble, right? And, my family, it's kind of crazy. We have so much family, but my family history is pretty rich. There's a lot of stuff that's happened in that family history that first of all motivates me to really want to do a lot in my life, because I kind of look at it as I have really big shoes to fill. You see, my great grandfather, he was a very influential musician in Mexico. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest musicians in his time, who influenced pretty much the entire country. Everything from all the different musicians at the time, writing music for them, collaborating with them, but spreading a very positive message and, a very loving message. He was just a very happy guy. If you look at some of his videos on YouTube, some of his older interviews, he was just always, looking to help people smile and, share a couple laughs if possible. And, he was able to influence even some of the biggest artists in Mexico that have now gone on to become legends themselves. And I see that as wow, if he can do that and he can influence, people to go and do all kind of greatness, I wonder what I could do. And so, I always kind of had those thoughts in my head. And I remember growing up hearing all the stories about him and everybody telling me how much I looked like him, because they would always tell me that, out of the whole family, I'm the one that kind of looks like him. They would call me Little Pedrito and everything. And, shout out to him, Pedro Vargas. But, my grandfather, so moving down a little bit, he was a serial entrepreneur. He was somebody that, was doing a whole lot for the family. And I would say he's probably the most, successful person, at least that I know about, in my life. And, people who have told me things about him, and just hearing his stories just always makes me smile and makes me really feel connected to him in a way, even though I didn't get to meet him, because unfortunately he passed before I was born. And, they actually killed him because of his money. They were after his money. He didn't want to tell him where it was at. And, unfortunately things went down that way. But like Drake, my grandfather, he was very smart. He's like, when I die, I put my money in the grave. Exactly what he did. He buried a lot of it. He had so much gold because he had turned a lot of his, assets and liquidated them and turned them into actual gold. And he didn't trust the banks. Very smart man. I mean, back in the day, they're more corrupt, and so he already knew, and he knew the value of gold. And it's crazy because I'm a trader at the end of the day, and my favorite pair to trade, my favorite instrument is gold. And so I definitely I'm right there with you, Gramps. All about that gold. And it would have been so nice, to have that inheritance. Today that inheritance is worth upwards of $1 billion. And I always think, well, how different my life would have been. Being inherited $1 billion. And he went on to do all kinds of stuff. I mean, he was a developer in Mexico, in California. He was pretty much creating whole cities and doing a whole lot of amazing things. But after his guidance, after his leadership, and after he was gone, the family didn't really have a mentor. Didn't really have somebody to take the lead or to be able to continue to grow and scale all these different businesses because of the great mindset that he had. So due to a lack of education or whatever it was, some of these businesses kind of just ended up being taken by some of my aunts, uncles, and they went on to kind of keep, their own little piece of the pie. And so, I don't resent anybody for that. I'm grateful that they're doing good, but my father, he wasn't left with much. And so he had to kind of leave to the United States and start, his own life from scratch. He grew up with a lot of mental issues because of that. I mean, you can imagine, it's like being stripped of everything and then kind of being cast out. And he grew up, at least, in my youth, what I remember, he grew up kind of like a struggling, alcohol addict who was trying his hardest to take care of the family, but at the end of the day, the addiction would sometimes, get the best of him, and it would cause us to get into a pretty big hole to where sometimes we would have to leave the house because we couldn't pay rent and we were late for 3-4 months and ended up getting evicted and having to kind of move around a whole lot as a kid. Made it to where I was always the new kid. I was always having to go out there and make friends and talk to strangers. I don't have any like childhood friends that I've grown up with, like at all. Sometimes I kind of envy that. I always hear people talking about, man, I know this guy since we were 6, down the block, and I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool. But regardless though, I have more friends than I can count, and I'm super grateful for that. I think it stemmed from those early moments growing up, having to move around all the time. But long story short, at the age of 15, I figured, man, I gotta get out of the house. I gotta do something. There's so much I could be doing, and I kind of felt like I was, procrastinating on some of the ideas that I had, and I wanted to definitely help my family. My father by that time was already kind of recovering, and so he was doing a little bit better. But I remember right around then, my mother got really sick, and she actually had a tumor that she had surgery for. I remember that surgery was like, it was crazy. I've never seen, somebody in so much pain, because I think one of the hardest moments, in my youth growing up was, seeing my mother, going out of surgery in so much pain, telling me like, please, son, like, like it's cool. Like, just let me go. Like, I'm ready. Like, it hurts too much. Like, I'd rather just go. And that broke me. Whenever I was little, I didn't know what to do. I was helpless. I had absolutely no money. So there was no way I could provide any type of, financial aid or any type of better care or hospitals. And so that, I think, was kind of like the pivotal moment for me that made me really get out of my ass and start doing something. And I remember, I left the house because I felt that I was like mooching, I felt that I was just like kicking it and taking advantage and, eating food I wasn't buying and living in a house I wasn't paying rent for. And I mean, my parents never really bought me like too much clothes or any type of like toys or games and stuff like that. Like most of it, I remember I would have to go out there and earn it myself, cutting grass, selling candy bars, like whatever it was. And I kind of just felt like, what, my dad started working when he was 11. I'm 15 right now, so I'm way behind. let me go out there into the real world and just figure it out and make it just like they did. And let me go and chase this what I feel is kind of like a life like task of making it all back for my grandfather, and being able to kind of set things right, because somewhere along the line, I don't know what happened, but something went horribly wrong, and it ended up costing this big shift to where my family, my parents weren't able to live the life that they really deserve, because they're amazing human beings. I love them to death. They're my biggest whys. Most of what I do is for them, is to be able to give them that life. And I was able to retire them last year. This year for Father's Day, I actually bought my father one of his favorite trucks, which was a Chevy Silverado C71 white in particular, because I remember when I was real small, I think I was in the 4th grade. One day we were like shopping for groceries, and we come outside and the truck's gone. And I remember that was his baby. Like when he first got that truck, he was so happy. Like my father's a master mechanic, and he loves cars and trucks, and he loves Chevy. And so he was just, geeked on that thing. And we had it for a good moment. I remember going all over to Colorado, and he would take us around, and it was great, and so, one day we come out and it's not there anymore. And I'm real young. I don't really understand why, or how that works. I didn't know anything about repos and stuff like that, but I remember it broke him, like it really, like as a father, it just broke him. And, that really hurt him. And I always had that vision since then, like, man, I'm gonna make this right. Like if I could, I would, right? That's what I'll say. So I was able to get that truck for him for Father's Day this year. He was super excited about that. So again, my parents are everything to me. Like they really are my biggest why. And my story kind of starts a few generations back, because again, I always felt that I had these huge shoes I had to fill. And that's kind of one of the biggest motives why I'm so driven, to just strive for the very top, for as far as I can go. I think they set the tone for me, and I'm super grateful for that. Now, currently, I'm just at a stage where, I feel like I've accomplished definitely a lot, but I feel like I'm barely getting started. Like now I'm at this point where I can really scale, and I have the resources, I have the tools, I have the people, I have all the ideas set in stone to where I'm really focused on getting into every industry that I can. I want to become a serial entrepreneur just like my grandfather was. And eventually I want to be a developer just like he was as well. Some of my most recent ventures have been the charter business. I just recently got into yacht chartering, and we have this 82 first. So anybody listening wants to go out there to the Bahamas or something like that with the family, let me know. Right.
So selfless plug there for a sec.
Above and beyond though, it's so many different things that I'm currently doing that I'm, growing. Like I have a extract production company based in Las Vegas. We just released nationwide. It's called Melts Extracts. And we're actually about to collab with cookies. So I'm super excited about that. Cookies have always been one of my favorite brands. I love to partake myself. And I think that being able to get into that industry is going to really teach me a lot more, just in general about this, because I really want to scale it up pretty big. I think it's always been a big part of who I am. It's always been, a big part of what I do. And it's always been very medicinal to me. I'm 30 years old right now. I turn 31 next year. And every single time I meet people, they're always like, oh, I thought you were like 22, 23, 24. And they're always asking me, what do you do? What's your secret? And I'm like, I'm just happy. that's really it. Stress is the number one thing that'll cause aging. So, stay as happy as you can if you want to.
For sure. Damn, that story was, I would have had no idea. That was awesome. You said that you got success in your generations, my man. It's only inevitable. It sounds like.
And, it's crazy because not everybody in my family sees it that way. I have so much family who they see what's been done before. and what we're capable of, but they settle. Nah, that's not for me. I'm just gonna go do this little thing over here, and I really want to help my family be able to reach, their goals and dreams. My brother being one of them, he's another one of my big whys and my big reason why I do things, because my father was kind of going through that phase of, alcohol addiction. The only one who was kind of there for me as a father figure and was teaching me how to be a man was my brother, my older brother Frank. And I love my older brother Frank to death. I mean, this is the guy that virtually raised me. He's been my best friend. If I have one childhood friend, it's him. And currently he's working with General Motors. He's doing really well for them. He's like one of the higher ups in the company here in Arlington, in Texas. And it's a beautiful family. They're all great, taken care of. But I know that he has so much more in store for him. And, he's kind of like at a point where he's like, I'm good. I got my kids, I got my wife, we travel, like that's all I want. And happiness is really doing whatever you want at the end of the day. So, for him, that's his goals and he's living it. And, I can't do nothing about that. However, I know that he's got a lot more left in him. So we're going to be starting because cars are our thing, I mean, so I have a Supra and that's why I have a dealership. Cars are just one of my favorite things in the entire world. And very soon, me and him are going to be opening up a custom body shop. So we're going to be doing all kind of custom work for trucks, cars, for bikes, you name it. And I'm super excited about that. It's going to be kind of the way that I do art or NFTs, because we might make them NFTs. You know what I'm saying? Like, add little things and touches to the car that, like, whenever you turn it on, it has your NFT right there. Boom. But regardless, we're going to be doing a lot of amazing things. And, it all starts with just going out there and wanting to create an empire to then be able to have the resources to, tackle every single idea you've ever had. Another one of them is like a restaurant. I've always wanted to get into the restaurant business. Growing up, Ratatouille was one of my favorite Disney movies. And I was like, man, I used to cook it up in the kitchen. Mom wasn't always there. She had to work 2 jobs. And so I always had to kind of teach myself. And, now I'm at a point to where I really want to get into 2 industries at once. One is, the restaurant business, and the other one is more in particular, like with the vegan, movement and or vegetarian. And I think right now it's a very good time to capitalize on that. So very soon, God willing, everything goes well, along with some partners, some that you guys actually know. Shout out to Mike Navarrete, my brother. We're making this vegan restaurant happen real soon. Stay tuned.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. It sounds like you got a lot of ideas in that head, and I can only where can do you have any of these things public that we could you're just gonna have to message me so I can put those links, the public ones, in the description of this for you.
Yeah, for sure. I'll send you all the information to all the different pages, because I know that the distance between you and money is a problem. And so I like to become, a professional problem solver. There's a lot of problems that, people have. Some people don't have transportation. Some people haven't taken their family out on a trip. Some people don't know how to increase their money. Some people don't know how to save or anything about credit. So all these different problems are things that I like to solve for other people, because like Zig Ziglar says, if you can help enough other people get everything that they want in life, by default, you will have everything that you want.
Sheesh. Yo, Chris, I got a question to ask you, because this is a question I've never asked anybody, because nobody got on this podcast to me that I could really classify as a true, I wouldn't say legend. We've had legends on the call, but your life is like a movie. And so I was wanting to ask you, what would you name your movie? You know what I'm saying? What would be the name of it and why?
Oof, man, that's a really good question.
Movie's still going though, so you're probably not even at the climax of the movie yet. Actually, you are not at the climax of the movie.
I'm not at the peak yet, man.
So you got a distance before you got to title it.
I'm about a quarter in. I want to live forever. I really do. I think, at least 120 is doable. And, if you can hold it up here, then it definitely can happen. I think the name of my movie would be Sempiternal, right? And the reason why is because it's something that just resonates just so much with me, with my vision, with my goals, with, things that I'm doing right now that I want to continue to do. And it's also the name of an album from one of my favorite bands. Shout out to Mike Miles. He's the one that actually put me onto this. And it's this particular album. If you go to Google and you look up Sempiternal album cover, you're going to see that it has in it the Flower of Life pattern, right? And so this is the same thing that kind of changed my whole life. It made me realize again who I was. It put everything into perspective. It made it all clear, and that overall it would summarize perfectly the movie of my life.
Sheesh. So I don't even have to ask you like what book really changed your life. You done put it up already. I was gonna ask you that question. Never mind now.
There's a lot of books. There's a lot of books that have greatly impacted me. As a matter of fact, I believe that one of the things that is almost your responsibility to do is share the knowledge with other people. If it's helped you, it could help somebody out. And again, you get what you give. So the more that you give, ultimately is going to come back to you tenfold. One of the books that really, really allowed me to understand some of the most valuable principles of life, which is love, relationships, happiness with yourself and others, and understanding of the true nature of who we are and what our purpose can be, because it can be ultimately whatever we want it to be. But this book, it's a book that came to me in a very unorthodox way, because I was already a little at the time closed-minded to certain things just because of what I thought I knew, right? We always sometimes let our ego get in front of our blessings, and sometimes when we think we know is when we don't know at all. Mm-hmm. So I took a little backstory to kind of preface on why this was something that was hesitant to me at first, is because the way I was raised, I grew up extremely, extremely religious. I actually grew up Mormon, and growing up in the Mormon faith, I'm beyond grateful for that. First of all, I want to say that, if it wasn't for that and that experience and all the things that I was able to learn in this church, I would not be who I am today. At all. I'd be somebody completely different. And so again, I'm super grateful for those experiences. And growing up in the church, I remember having to really study in depth. It wasn't just like a Sunday, thing for an hour. It was like 5 times a week for like 8 hours. And, every single week since I was little, just constantly studying, and constantly giving service to other members, in the org and just other people in general. And that always kind of just, taught me the importance of service. And it's given me a lot of really nice, blessings from just being able to help others. So I know that, in service, there's always going to be a lot of fulfillment. And so that's the main thing that, this religion, this faith teaches, is service, right? To yourself and your fellow, brothers and sisters. So I can't be mad at that. However, as I grew up and as I gained more and more understanding, and as I started asking more and more questions, eventually there's only so many questions that, one person can answer. Not one person has all the answers. And so that's really where I landed, in my understanding, is that I couldn't hold just this one thing to be the absolute truth, and I'll give you an example. There are 7,000 languages in the world today. I only speak 2. So imagine all the books and all the languages that I've never read, all the subjects, all the philosophers, all the ideas, all the concepts, stories, all the beautiful experiences that I have no clue about because I don't even understand those other 6,000 plus languages. So, the way I look at it, I don't think it's right for any one person to say that they know how it is, how it really is. I don't think it's right for one person to be like, hey, everybody, I had this realization and this is just how it is. And from now on, it's just this way, period. Because, I've realized that as I grow older, the more I know, the more I realize that I don't know anything. It's like, I constantly keep learning things that just blow my mind. And I'm like, wow, you really don't know what you don't know. And so, if there's the possibility that I could continue to learn more things, how could I live my life according to something that I don't fully, really know, right? Mm-hmm. And And I'm going to say this in a way that's non-controversial, because I know that sometimes people may, be listening to what I'm saying and thinking, oh, man, he really needs some Jesus. And let me tell you, I love Jesus. Jesus is one person that I absolutely follow. As a matter of fact, I bear the name of Christ. My mother gave me that name because she really thought it was something that she wanted me to remember my whole life, to follow the example of Christ. Christ consciousness is something I believe is returning to the earth very soon. And it's the awareness that all of us have the ability to, live in that blissful state of mind, to where it's all love, because that's what he was preaching at the end of the day, was love. That was his message. And I believe that people who, love Jesus and who, worship Jesus and who want to be like Jesus should really take what he did into their own lives and embody that. I don't see too many people washing their neighbor's feet. At the end of the day, he preached that you have to love your neighbor, in a sense, because we are all one. We're all connected, right? And it's not so much worshiping that I believe is what he would have wanted. I believe if, he was standing next to me right now, he would probably feel like, man, I wish people just followed my example. I wish people just followed what I did. I wish people just really loved each other unconditionally. I wish people were just humble enough to, ride a donkey and show up somewhere, right? To be in that level of humility, and I believe is something that, more people have to practice, including myself. And, I always try to, as often as possible. So following Jesus to me is following his example, regardless of your faith. Just like with Buddha, Buddha, when they asked Buddha, after he was meditating all day long, they were like, man, you're always meditating. Like, what do you gain from meditation? And he said, nothing. But I'll tell you what I lost: anxiety, depression, anger, envy, jealousy, all these things that are, negative to us, that affect us in negative ways. And then it leads all back to love. So, for me, love is the highest frequency. It's the frequency that makes me feel like I'm living in heaven. And so when I live in love, I'm there, and I believe that I came here to this world to really remind people about love, unconditional love, the type of love that you just give to everybody, because you can't help but realize that they're also a part of you.
Sheesh. Okay, this past weekend, bro, you just spoke in front of 5,000 plus people. And man, I seen you on stage. You look super confident. You was looking fresh and everything. What do you do to prepare yourself to, be able to public speak? Because some people would rather die, literally rather die than be able to open their mouth in front of other people. So it takes, some skill set, it takes some courage to get up there and do that. So what do you do to prepare yourself?
So, for me personally, I like to kind of get away from everybody for a little bit. I'll go in the hallways or in the restroom, I'll wash my face. I'll do a little breathing, I'll try to recite some of the things in my head right, before I go up on stage, so that they stay fresh in there. And one thing that I realized is very effective is that I think past, the I don't know, I guess the initial feelings of, anxiety or being nervous or stumbling or stuttering or anything like that. I'm thinking like, man, I'm getting off the stage already and I killed it, like I'm getting off and it was lit. And believe it or not, it's also the same trick that martial artists use to focus their chi energy. For example, have you ever seen those guys that can, cut through 10 bricks or, cut through steel, they're thinking past it. And so that's how they would, make that happen. And I think that public speaking is something that you have to grow into. I don't think that you can come into it and just, absolutely kill it and crush it. Even though I've seen some people do it, there's still a lot of techniques that you have to practice, like voice inflections. You have to be good at transitions. You have to be good at filler words and not using too many filler words, all those little things. If anything, pauses are better. And all of those things just take time to learn, because, you can't teach experience. You have to just grow through it. And I believe after you've done it so many times, you naturally just get better of it, because that's kind of how it works. One of my favorite people to listen to in leadership is John C. Maxwell. And he did this seminar where he was going over a lot of his secrets with everybody. And they asked him about public speaking, and they asked him how he's so good at it. And he's like, all right, you guys drove from, some of y'all hours away. Some of you guys took, the bus for a day. Some of you guys came in planes and, got in that plane for 6+ hours. And so because they all came and paid the price and made the efforts to be here today, I'm going to go ahead and share that secret with you guys. So huddle up close, listen closely, write this in your notes. The secret is that I've done this 10,000 times. And I was like,
practice makes perfect.
It makes sense. So I think it's definitely something that you have to just kind of, jump into. And even though you might stutter, even though you might use filler words, even though you might do all that stuff in the beginning, with practice, it'll always get better. And also feeling the energy of the crowd really helps. Whenever you have a great crowd that's just there, and they might see that you're a little nervous, but they cheer you on, it really makes you feel like, I got this. But one thing that I've noticed too, because being a mentor to so many people, I always think of ways that I could spark that, desire to maybe not want to be a public speaker, but to at least be on stage sharing their story with other people, because somebody in that, crowd is going to feel it, and it could change their lives. And so I just give them the spotlight, without them really asking for it. One thing that we do in our organization, every time that somebody's new in the business, we do kind of an initiation where we let them share their story, and we let them get in front of a crowd, whether it's virtually or in person. And almost every time when they get out of that stage, they feel good, because they're like, man, I got so many compliments on my story. So many people told me that they related to me. So many people told me that what I said inspired them. And so that right there sparks and ignites that passion for, I think I kind of want to speak on the stage. It's cool. I love being able to impact in that way, because it really is just multiplying your efforts, having a crowd versus just, a one-on-one. And so after being on stage with 5,000 people, I could tell you this, I didn't say half the things I wanted to. Our time was very cut. And so that's another thing you have to get good at, is being able to speed through it and say a lot of valid points in a very short amount of time. I noticed that the best person that did it to the T, literally finished on the second, was Eric Thomas. And his whole presentation was like, it penetrated my soul. It spoke right to me. I needed to be there. And I'm so grateful I got to be front and center and, really take that in. And seeing his level of professionalism, seeing how good he does it, it just lets me know, okay, I got to do this another 10,000 times.
So what do you think of the saying, or I guess the embodiment to some people, of live in discomfort? What does that kind of mean to you?
I think it really means, push yourself out of your comfort zone, because as we all know, nothing great ever happens in your comfort zone. The grave is where most dreams go to die. It's the most expensive place in the entire world. Think of all the ideas that never, came out from that, all the businesses that never got created, all the amazing ideas that had to just been put down in paper, taken action on, and been implemented, could have changed the world. And, it didn't happen that way. And so I believe that you have to really execute on those ideas whenever they come to you. And, it's something that a lot of people aren't willing to do, because they're not willing to take risks, but not realizing everything in life really is a risk. I mean, if you drive to work, you're already taking a risk. If you take the bus to work, you're taking a risk. If you take the subway to work, you're taking a risk. However big or small it is, everything in life is risks. And, understanding that, I guess it kind of allowed me to calculate risks a little bit better. And then that kind of led me into what I do now, which is my bread and butter. And that's the world of trading, because it's all just calculated risks the same way. Very much like a bad relationship could be a bad risk, a bad trade, it's the same thing. And so once you're able to determine those factors, and you get really good at calculating probability, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to use discernment. I'm going to use my knowledge so I don't make the same mistakes again. And, you know, if this feels right, it resonates with me, then, you know, let's go ahead and do it. If I fail, oh, well, you know, at least I tried it. And if I do it and it works, you know, what if? Because you never know, you know, all these ideas that you have, if you were to put them down on paper and execute on them, one of them is going to make you a millionaire. You know, one of them is going to change the world. And, you know, I think that it's really important to take opportunities, you know, by the horns and just ride it. And even if you don't know right away, you know, still do something and learn along the way. But the worst thing that you could do is stay in your comfort zone and not chase those dreams, not go after those things that you want to do. Because if you're in your comfort zone, time flies, man. Like, as I tell people all the time. But the good news is you're the pilot. Where are you steering that plane? Or is it just on autopilot, right? And because time flies by so quickly, I feel that if you don't do what's absolutely necessary to position yourself for greatness, then, you know, before you know it, you're going to wake up 10 years later, still at mom's, still having the same job, still driving the same car, and wondering, you know, why you're not happy. And so, you know, I think that you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone as hard as it's going to hurt or as much as it's going to hurt. Still do it. You know, when I first got into the world of entrepreneur, I remember I had two places that I was paying for, even though I didn't live at both of them at the same time. Obviously, I'm just one person. But that just goes to show, again, how little I knew about money. Because I wasn't even home all the time. I was working all the time, and I was only home on Sundays, you know, staying in between two different spots. But I was comfortable. You know, I had all my stuff there. I was comfortable. I was chilling. And it was my own space. Nobody could tell me nothing. You know, essentially I could be as messy as I wanted to, even though I wasn't. But, you know, I could do whatever I want. And nobody would have to tell me, hey, get up, you know, work or do this, do that, you know, wash the dishes, like none of it. And when I started, I remember telling myself, if I don't put myself in an uncomfortable position, I'm not going to be able to grow. So I got rid of the penthouse, got rid of the high rise. And I moved in, me being, you know, a grown man, 25 years old, moved in with two other grown men, also 25 years old. And I was like, yo, I'll sleep on the floor. Like, I don't care. Like, you know, I got rid of the Corvette that I had at the time. It was real nice, real comfortable. But, you know, when I first went all in into trading, I left my job. And so I didn't have an income anymore. And I realized I had to cut back on a lot of things that I didn't really need. And, you know, essentially you have to give up to go up. So got rid of all those things, put myself in a very uncomfortable position because since I left the house when I was 15, I never had roommates. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, here I am having two of them, running a trade house with hundreds of people coming in and out every single day. So it was extremely uncomfortable for me at first, but that's what was necessary. That was a price I had to pay in order to get here.
Sheesh. All right, our podcast is titled the T.O.D. Project, which stands for Triumph Over Defeat. And so we like to bring people on that clearly, you know, you went through a lot of, you know, struggling times and everything like that. But what was that one moment where you like, you thought about giving up? You're like, I don't know if I'll be able to keep going. Like, but you kept going and then you had that breakthrough. What was that moment for you?
So I think in 2016, that was really the moment for me because, you know, when we embarked on this journey of learning, you know, about the financial instruments that you can trade in, from stocks to cryptos to Forex, you name it. You know, I had this perception at first that I was going to come in and get rich, you know, my first month. You know, I really thought I was going to come in and be a millionaire, like, you know, overnight. Because I'd seen other people do it, or at least, you know, I thought I'd seen other people do it. A lot of the times you don't know what's out there on social media, and, you know, some of it isn't even real. But seeing it out there gave me this false perception that, you know, I could easily do it. And I started chasing the money. And then I realized, you know what, if you just chase the money in this game, you're always going to get got, because it's all psychology based. Like, you have to really understand that it's absurd the masses do the opposite. You know, they bait everybody. Everybody takes the bait, and then the big players win. And that's really how it works. So it's more so having the patience to wait for the manipulation to take place, and then get in, you know, when the big whales get in, and be able to just ride the wave with them to be able to reap those same rewards. But, you know, at first, my first year learning all of this, I didn't make any money. I actually took a huge pay cut. It was crazy because like my taxes from 2015, were like $250,000, and then my taxes from 2015 were like a goose egg. Like I didn't make no money that year. So that was a huge challenge for me because, I quit my job, risked it all, went all in, even sacrificed my relationship at the time to really chase this dream. And, you're working as hard as you can for a whole year, only losing money through trading. And then the team that I was building in 2016, at the very end of the year, everything came down to a halt because the FTC passed a new regulation in the industry. And at the time, we didn't qualify for the things that allowed us to even receive commissions. So when our commissions stopped coming in, I remember I saw people go, homeless again. People lost their penthouse, their cars, and it was very tough. And, the business almost collapsed overnight. And so here I am, I've sacrificed everything, including my girlfriend. I'm back at my mom's house because I didn't even have a place to live at the time. And I'm just like, do I just go back to work? Like, do I fold? Like, what do I do? Is this a sign? Is this God, the universe telling me to stop, that it can't be done? Or is this a challenge? Is this my test? Because you can't have a testimony without a test. And so I realized, this is the test. No wonder. It's so hard because this is the test I've been prepping for. So I realized, okay, it's not up to, anybody else but me, right? Matt Rosa says, if it's up to be, or if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And so, I really think that you have to take things into control. You can't just like let chance dictate your life and then call it, destiny. I believe that you create your own destiny. And so for then, that moment for me was, what? I'm not gonna fold. This is gonna be that moment that I'll be known for. This is gonna be that thing that changes everything. And so in 2016, we revolutionized, the industry. We changed the platform that we're working with, revamped it and made it sexy. And, we're able to provide a lot more value because we created new ways to bring this information, to the mainstream for the masses, and do so in a way that they've already been doing it, like learning how to play video games. We made it easy. And so that revolutionized everything. And long story short, that was able to really catapult us to success in this industry and allow us to, at the same time, bless the lives of, tens of thousands of people, which I'm super grateful for. But had I said, what, all right, Mom, I'll go back to work, that's where I would be right now.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing before you decided to take that chance?
Well, this was like a year into the whole phase of me already getting into entrepreneurism. Mm-hmm. But before that, I was working for different travel companies like Wyndham, Hilton, Marriott, RCI, basically just helping train and develop teams for sales. And, I was teaching psychology, teaching them how to speak to people, how to connect to people. Essentially, I was in marketing and doing a lot of what I'm doing now, mm-hmm. but for somebody else versus for me. And so that was the biggest difference because, doing it the old way, I couldn't take time off if my boss said I couldn't. I couldn't create my own schedule. I couldn't dictate really what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, or how I wanted to do it. And I remember Prince, the musician, a long time ago, he wrote on his face, he wrote slave, like big letters, slave. And they asked him, why'd you do that? He said, if I can't say what I want or do what I want, what am I? And so I felt that one, and that was just one of those things that really started to plant those seeds inside my head that made me realize I don't want a job. I don't want to work for somebody else. I don't want somebody else to dictate my freedom. Essentially, I don't want to be a slave. And I think that it was really that made me, want to just chase that dream even harder, regardless of the risks or everything that, was standing in the way.
For sure.
All right. So Cris, I admire what you do with Trade House. And so I like to study other people that built things, and you built an amazing family, amazing community with Trade House. And me and Jared are on our road to, build Triumph Company. in October it'd be a year. And this first year, yeah, we haven't made a whole lot of sales and a lot of profits, but we learn more about ourselves. And so what would you say to any entrepreneur that, you know, wants to start a business or just started one? What would you tell them to do to, like, you know, keep going and to be able to prosper in it eventually?
So I believe that there's a lot of musts, you know, in business. Like, for example, you must be around the right energy because, you know, the world of business is pretty tough. And if, you know, you're not around high energy or, you know, good frequency, you know, good vibes, you're around negativity, it's going to make it 10 times harder. You know, one of my favorite books is written by W. Clement Stone, which is uh, it says or I'm sorry, success through a positive mental attitude. You know, so it's written by W. Clement Stone and Napoleon Hill, and it talks about how just having a positive, you know, attitude can really catapult your success if you're just the most optimistic person in every scenario, and you're constantly just expecting the best. It's going to happen to you, right? And you know, I think that those things really impacted me a whole lot to be able to create whatever environment I wanted for myself because I wasn't around the negativity. I wasn't around the naysayers. You know, I would cut that out real quick. Whenever I started trading, I remember I told my best friends at the time, hey, you know, I'm going to go into this. Like, who's coming with me? You know, like let's get rich together. Let's do this. And nobody took it serious. Nobody even cared. You know, they didn't like want to know. And so I realized then and there that you can't make people want it. And, you know, if I wanted more for somebody than they want it for themselves, it's just not going to work to begin with. So, you know, go out there, find the people that want to make things happen. You know, don't waste your time with people who aren't serious, and surround yourself around the right environment. If your environment at home is negative, it's toxic, you know, it's non-supportive, and that could even be with your spouse. You know, you have to, again, give up to go up. And it's not forever. You know, you don't have to like tell the family, hey, I'm disowning y'all, but be like, yo, I'm out for a little bit. Like, y'all aren't going to see me until I'm right, you know, because I need to get right first. You got to essentially fill your cup before you can pour onto others. And so, you know, those are just some of the sacrifices that you have to make. A lot of people sometimes aren't willing to do that, but those are the very, very, you know, essential musts in business. Is you have to understand that that's what it takes. And also it's going to take a lot of work. So understand that, you know, you don't have a boss making your schedule and you don't make your schedule, nobody's going to do it. You have to really, really be on top of time management. Time management is absolutely everything because there's a lot of people who go into business, and I've seen this happen a lot, not just in trading or marketing, but in so many different types of ventures. And then they only work 2 or 3 hours a day, meaning they're willing to work harder for somebody else than they are for themselves. That's the number one mistake most entrepreneurs make. Whenever you're launching a business, instead of working 8 hours a day, you should be working like 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, barely sleeping. Sacrifice sleep for a little bit so that in the future you can sleep wherever you want, on your yacht, on your island, on your helicopter, on your jet. You know, it's really much like that. So I think another must in business is personal development. You know, personal development is the biggest thing that has helped me get to where I'm at by giving me the mindset necessary to keep up with all of this. Because if you don't have the mindset to go along with the wealth, it's not going to last. This is the reason why everybody who wins the lottery goes broke after a few years, is because they just don't understand how money works, and they don't have the mindset for it either. They don't have patience. They're very, you know, impulsive. They don't know how to spend. And so all those reasons is the reasons that a lot of people lose their wealth. You know, I want people to really come into this space and be able to not just get rich, but stay rich. And then, you know, duplicate that and scale that out. And personal development is going to be the key to do so. So, you know, before, you know, I go, I can't forget to give out some of the sauce back to the family. I started talking about this earlier, but the reason I was saying about, you know, religion is because after leaving the church, you know, for a while, I kind of resented the word God. You know, after being confused about the nature of God, I would sometimes cringe when people were like, God this, you got that. Because I'm in my mind, I'm like, but like, you're just saying that because of what you've been taught, you know, like you don't really like know. And I'll give you one really controversial, I should say, example. And that's expressing even the nature of God. Everybody says him, but that got changed in history. And again, I used to resent hearing that because it was like people saying it who didn't know. And I realized that the problem in most, different topics is that people know enough about a subject to think they're right, but they don't know enough about the subject to know they're wrong. And, that just comes from reading the first chapter of a book, but never finishing it.
Jeez.
So I really believe that the more that you know, the more you realize you don't know anything at all. So to even say God is a him or God is a her is beyond me, and whenever I first heard this book, it was actually my girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, who was listening to it because she was going through her spiritual, religious, journey, breakthroughs or whatever, trying to understand what it is that she even believed in herself. And this book was recommended to her by somebody else. And so, at the time, like I said, I was very close off to some of this information just based on the name, just on that word. And she was listening to it, in the shower one day in Spanish. And I didn't know what book she was listening to, but I kind of just like stopped what I was doing. I was just like listening. I was like, yo, this book is speaking to me right now. Like, this is some truth right here. Like, this is crazy. I'd never heard anything like it. And I asked her, what book is that? And she said, Conversations with God. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's different. There's another very controversial book that I highly recommend people to read. That's called Outwitting the Devil. And, a lot of people won't read that either because of that word, because of that title, just because it has that name in it. They're gonna be like, oh, I don't want nothing to do with that, but you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of the times, like I said, your pride blocks your blessings, and you stand in front of your own blessings. And so you have to really just be open, and decipher the information. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, then move on. But, I know that both of those books, Outwitting the Devil and Conversations with God, are an absolute must in every household and every entrepreneur's hand, because it'll teach you a lot about people. It'll teach you a lot about integrity. It'll teach you a lot about ethics. It'll teach you a lot about growth and development. And it kind of answers your questions to everything in life. For me, it really did. And so that's why those two are definitely in the top 5 favorite. But also, I would say if you really want to grow any business, you have to read How to Build an Empire by Brian Carruthers, right? That's what we're on right now, and trust me, it's helped us get to where we're at. And besides like just business and personal development, you have to really understand a lot about history, about math, about the nature of how this world works and operates, about things that have gone down that nobody really talks about. So I would recommend this right here. This is called Secrets of the Flower of Life by Drumvolo Melchizedek. So I think I gave enough sauce to people with just those right there. But that's the way that you really grow and scale in business, is to always continue learning, always continue, growing your connections, your resources, meeting more people along the way, and really just not being afraid to take risks.
Sheesh. All right, guys. This podcast has been amazing. I feel like we can end it here. He's gonna give us so much sauce. Jared, I don't know how you feeling right now, bro, but I ain't gonna lie, I'm energized, bro. I'm about to start reading and everything when I get off this podcast.
I already pulled up Amazon to find Building an Empire, so I'm buying that tonight. So great suggestion. Great suggestion, my man. I appreciate you.
So good. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I appreciate you guys for inviting me on here as well. Definitely it's been a pleasant time talking with you boys. Look forward to in the future collabing again sometime. So anything that you guys need from me, y'all know where to find me. Wake Up with Vargas on Instagram. Shoot me a message. Again, there's a lot of different things that I'm on. So whether you're looking for a car, a good time, or you just want to learn some stuff, hit me up.
For sure. Well, guys, that has been episode 34 of the T.O.D. Project. Again, all of Chris's links will be down below in the description. If you are on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, scroll down underneath the podcast. You'll see all of Chris's stuff. Get in connection with this man. You obviously know by now, if you've listened till now, he's a very, very, very knowledgeable man, and he welcoming you guys with open arms if you have any questions. But yeah, thank you for coming out to episode 34 again, Cris. Loved having you on. Loved having you tell your story. Just spew out the information that you gave us today. Very grateful for that. But anyways, guys, we will see you guys in episode 35. Take it easy. Have a fantastic rest of your day.